Alright guys, it's an M240 kind of day. We got Gabe's car here. We actually, on the previous video of this car, you probably saw me install the Pure 800. We actually just removed the Pure 800 turbo from the car, and it's inside the shop because he's going big boost. Well, maybe I'm not supposed to say that. That'll be in another video. We got this 240, which he sold his turbo to. So the turbo's over here on the ground. Got the downpipe and the Pure 800. We're gonna be showing you a little more of that here later. But the car is basically bone stock. All right, so this car is basically stock from the top. It does have a catted downpipe, not a stock downpipe, but a high flow cat downpipe. And it also does have a TU B58 high pressure pump from a Supra on it. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're gonna be pulling all this stuff apart. First things first, pull this engine cover off, get a good look at that B58. And you know, we're gonna pull this intake out and the stock turbo out. So let's get to it. Kind of give you guys a rundown of how it's done. First steps first, disconnect mass airflow sensor, and then we're gonna remove this box. So let's go ahead and do that. So step one, after step one, is to loosen this clamp and remove your stock air box. It's just got a couple little rubber grommets. They pop right out, real easy. Set this to the side. Step three, we're gonna remove this little turbo solenoid blanket, and then we're gonna unclip our turbo solenoid and also this other connector down here that goes into your PCB sensor. Kind of hard. There's these white little clips on them. You got to pull these things back. You see that? You got to pull that little white tab back and then press it down. Next step is to remove this line off the valve cover. It's got two little tabs that you just pinch, and they can be a real pain, as you can see here sometimes. Don't get discouraged. Just squeeze these tabs and it'll eventually come off of there. Okay, the next step is to take this wiring harness and remove this out of the way. And then once you do that, there's this little clamp on the lower side. You can see right there. I've already loosened it. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the upper half of the stock intake tract out. Once we do that, that'll gain us a lot more access to this sensor here, where we'll pull the tab back. Sometimes it helps to do with a pick. I might have to put the camera down. Once we do that, then we're gonna pinch these little two lines and we're gonna pull this line off. Light too, if you want. So I've removed that connector, move that to the side. And then we're gonna go ahead and pinch these two right here and pull this thing up. And it's real sometimes. Pain in the ass, I should say, not a bit. As you can see, I'm struggling. There it is. So we've gone ahead and pinched that right there, like that, and pulled it up. Once you do that, it makes it easier to get the lower section. And you can go ahead and pinch the lower section and get that up as well. There's the lower section. You can see it splits into two, and this lower line goes down onto the block. So you can see I've split the line in two. There's two pinchies, one here and one below. I've gone ahead and split them. That's the easiest way. Now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and pop this little E-clip here. So I'll grab a little pick with a hook. It's like the best tool, a long pick with a hook. Reach down in there and pull these E-clips up. Come from the front side, it's a little easier. You'll see they just pull straight vertically up. And now that that's pulled up, this intake will come off of there. Sometimes they like to fall back down. If you just saw, they will do that from time to time. If you completely pull it off, like just happened there, you don't have that issue. You don't have to completely pull it off, it just happened. So there's the lower section. You take a T30 and a wrench and pull the 3 bolts after you've pulled the intake off. We're going to remove this hard pipe remove the 3 bolts on the stock charge pipe. We're gonna disconnect the sensor right here that goes into it. Stock charge pipe will pull back, get the other sensor, disconnect both of those. So they're both disconnected. Now we're gonna go back over here to the turbo side. We're gonna use our handy dandy pick again, and we're gonna pull this other E-clip up. So we got another E-clip down here that we gotta get. The lower one's a little bit more of a pain. It's a little bit stronger. So we're gonna go ahead and put a screwdriver in there, something a little more robust, because I couldn't get it with the pick. Sometimes they're just like that. They can be a bitch. Pull these E-clips out, the charge pipe comes off. Now we can just wiggle the whole thing out of here. Can be kind of a pain, but just a little persuasion and she'll eventually come. Oh yeah, the coolant line too is kind of stuck down in there. You gotta pop that clip. Forgot that was down there. Not the car in there. All right, so now that I got this charge pipe out, you can see there is this clip right here that does pop into the bottom of the charge pipe right here. And it literally just like pulls right off. It's super easy. So once that's out, now we can see the turbo really good. We're gonna go ahead and start removing the downpipe. We'll get this 13mm on the V-band for the downpipe, and then we'll get under the car and we'll remove the exhaust and some of the underbody panels. So we'll show you that next, and then we'll come back. So real quick, I've gone ahead and loosened the V-band clamp. So we're about to go under the car. I'm gonna go ahead and undo the O2 sensors. I've undone the clips on them. And I'm gonna go ahead and unclip them here. And then these brackets are kind of annoying sometimes to get them off. All right, so we'll go ahead and pull these connectors apart like that. Once these O2 sensors are off their little mounts, you just slip them forward and then undo them. You pull those things off those clips, and then they can just dangle there until you remove the downpipe, which we're gonna remove right now. Okay, so we got these 6 T50s. I've already removed 4 out of 6. Remove the other 2, and then we got a T60 on the back. There's 2 of these that bolt in. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this whole brace, put it to the side. Once we've finished that, the next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is remove this 13mm here holding this, a 13mm clamp up here, nut clamping the downpipe to the rest of the mid-pipe. And then there's also a clamp here, but we're just gonna go ahead, it's easier, in my opinion, to just hit the 213 since we have it on the lift back here. I hold the mounts up over here, my finger is. Hit these 13, one here and one on the other side, and just drop the whole exhaust down. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Let's do it. Okay, so we've gone ahead and removed the whole exhaust. I've got those 13s off in the back and all that, and the whole thing down, as well as the downpipe. The downpipe had 2 13mm nuts that went on these little studs right here. You guys can see those, there's 2 studs, 2 13mm nuts were on that. There's also a T50, I believe it is, or that is in the bottom of the turbo. And on the bottom down here, has a little support right there, goes in there. Got that guy out. There is a T30 that holds the water line to the exhaust up here, like down right. I'll put it up there so you can see. T30 that holds that little clampo there, and you got some T30s on your turbo feed lines and drain lines. T30 goes in right there, and you can see my finger back there, right there in that hole. We take that out. Once we've taken all that out and the downpipe out and stuff, we can start working on the flange bolts. So that's what I'm gonna be working on next to get the turbo out. So now we're back on the top side. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these 13mm bolts holding in this heat shield. And then once I remove that heat shield, I'll be able to unbolt the rest of the flange bolts. Okay guys, I've gone ahead and removed the upper nuts from the turbo. You can see they're all missing. Now we can actually take this little thing that's in here, this little guy right here, pull it off. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pulled the turbo basically out, and now it's gonna be really hard to do this one-handed, but I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the turbo, tip the nose up and pull it up through here. I'm gonna try and get it in some time lapse. Do my best to get this on film for you guys. It's really tight here around the solenoid. Kind of have to work that section up first, and then once the solenoid pops through, the nose of the turbo will come through. Move these lines out of the way. There she is. One turbo. There it is, guys. No turbo. So the turbo has been removed, or the B58. The official method is leaving this lower support bar in. So there, you guys can see real good. You got your turbo drain there. You got your oil feed here as the lower, and your water feed here as the upper hole. Right here, guys. So water feed and your oil feed down there, the darker one. This is a vacuum crankcase vent line to the intake. Yeah, it's really simple. You got that stand that I was talking about, that little turbo stand that turbo just kind of sits in, and this rear water line. All right, guys. So no turbo in there. We got the old tiny little stalker on here with the clip-on flange that they've cut off of the pure turbo and welded on a bigger flange. We'll take a look at the exhaust side real quick. Right here, on the exhaust side, you notice around the wheel, there's this thick area. That's all completely machined away on the pure, with a much bigger wheel. So we got a good look at the front here. You can see the massive inducer with this flange welded on here to the front of the turbo that they've machined off of the old one to get a bigger inlet. If you look here at the exhaust side, you can see that whole lip is completely machined away, and they've literally stuffed the biggest exhaust wheel they can stuff in here. This turbo is slightly used off of Gabe's car. It literally has 1,500 miles. So it should be like new on this car. Basically ready to throw this turbo in. I've gone ahead and installed new O-rings on the drains and the feeds for the turbo. We also have a new exhaust gasket already sitting in place. Got a nice new exhaust gasket in there. We're gonna go ahead and drop this turbo into place and start plugging in some of these lines and tightening that stuff down, and then we're gonna torque the exhaust gasket, and then we'll completely reassemble everything else. So let's go. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put all the nuts on the turbo. I've torqued the turbo starting with the middle bolt here. 10 Newton meters. I did 10 Newton meters across the bottom to make sure they're tight, and then I went staggered, this one, that one, then that one, then that one, and then back over to the farthest one and the farthest one in the back, and back and forth twice on 10 Newton meters, my bad. And then I've done 16 Newton meters twice across the whole turbo for the final torque. Now, I forgot to kind of film that. My bad, guys. I have also installed the charge pipe. It has just the E-clip. That was the next thing to do. Installed the charge pipe. It just clips in down here on the bottom, right here. Clips in, and then gone ahead and bolted it in here with the T30s, the 3 T30s. as well as plugged in the 2 sensors on the charge pipe. I've also reconnected the 2 little couplers here where they split. I connected them together and plugged in this sensor. Now I am ready to install the Pure Turbo Inlet. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the Pure Turbo Inlet with the PCV line already connected. So I'm gonna slip that in there to the turbo inlet down there and tighten that up and plug this bad boy in. And then we'll keep moving on and finish up more of the heat shielding over here, as well as the downpipe and some of the other stuff below. So let's get it done. And I almost forgot, guys, I also tightened the T30s down below here for the oil line and the water line here, hiding behind this vacuum line. There's 1 bolt in each of those, and they're also T30s as well, and I've torqued them. Next step, I've gone ahead and installed the Pure Turbo's intake boot and tightened the clamp on the inlet of the turbo, as well as plugged in this coupler into the boot right here, and plugged in the sensors into the PCV line and the wastegate solenoid. So now you should basically be ready to put in your heat shield and your downpipe and pretty much wrap up the job. We are getting near the end of the install of the Pure Turbo. Okay, heat shield is in. Now we're gonna go down below and install the downpipe. All right, guys, we got our new downpipe gasket for our new, to us, catless downpipe. We've got our O2 sensors installed in it, and we're gonna get the car up in the air. We're gonna install the downpipe. So this little ring is right here. Okay, so we've gone ahead and put the lower bolt in the turbo right there to support it and torqued it. We've gone ahead and put this T30 in the coolant line, and also put the coolant line back on underneath this silver heat shielding, and put the clamp on that. We've also torqued down our turbo drain line right here. The bolt is kind of hiding, but it's back there, right there. And we've torqued that down. You can see the turbo inlets are on and all good. I can reach my hand up here and just feel even on the turbo inlet, it's over the lip. So we're good on that. Yeah, everything is basically ready to go. Gonna put the downpipe in. We are basically done with the turbo install. Now it's basically just time to wrap up the downpipe install and the intake install. So we got the downpipe over here. She's about to go in. Okay, so we've gone ahead and got the downpipe completely installed, as well as the exhaust and this cross member. I've torqued all of these bolts, 6 here and the 2 there. They're T60s here and T50s here. All the exhaust clamps are tight. The 13 millimeters in the back are tight, and everything seems to be fitting the way it was when it came in. So it's kind of a quick little underview. Complete exhaust is on, downpipe's on. We're gonna go ahead and put this heat shield back in under here, and basically be done. Check you out on the top side and throw in this intake and stuff and finish up the top, and we'll be done. All right, so downpipe is in. All the feed lines and drain lines are tight. The reservoir, or the heat shield is in. The O2 sensors are clipped in. Everything is plugged in except for the intake. It's the last piece. We're gonna go ahead and put this intake track in and test fire her. So we've gone ahead and installed the intake and the upper intake boot. Everything is all good and tight. Only thing we gotta do now is top it off with some coolant and some oil and bleed the coolant system, and then we should be ready to test fire her. Okay, so we've gone ahead, checked everything real good. We got no leaks anywhere. All of this stuff is good on the turbo. So we're just gonna go ahead and put the bottom panel on right here and wrap her up. All right guys, so last step is to throw the underbody panel on. Gone ahead and done that. All the bolts are tight. They're all 8mm, all of these guys. And everything's looking beautiful with the turbo. No leaks. Looking good. Motor's running beautifully. Looks completely factory. You would never know, other than the little lower silicone hose, that there's actually an upgraded turbo on here. Crank pulley, crank hose, all that stuff looking good. All this stuff looking good. All right, so this is gonna conclude the M240 Pure 800 turbo install. Here we have his factory turbo here, and the lower inlet pipe that you don't use anymore, and his catted downpipe, since we've gone full catless downpipe. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the car out. Heater's working good. Signs that the coolant system has been bled. Go ahead and pull this baby out. Come on, get in your kennel. Get in your kennel.